Hi everybody, it's too nice a day to not be outside, so I'm going to record outside. Today we're going to do a wheel test.
Probably just testing me. Big test.
And so I'm going to test 5 wheels that I have in my collection. The Dragons, the Nano Cubics in a 97A, some Spitfire Kyle Wilsons that are 99A, and then some Bones 101s, and then the classic Spitfire 101s. And before I get too deep into the video, know that I am not including in the list of wheels that I'm going to play with the Spitfire soft sliders that came out recently. I don't have a set of those yet. If you think I should try them, though, let me know in the comments. So there's a few aspects about wheels that I wanted to test, and that's sliding on flat ground, the impact that you feel when you land something, and then, of course, grinds and slides, and that's a big category right there. And so what am I going to do to test these aspects of the wheels? I'm going to do some power slides and pivots on flat ground. I'm going to do some flat ground tricks and feel what the impact is like. I'm going to do a bunch of 50-50s, some crooked grinds, and some nose and tail slides on my little box in the garage. And one more disclaimer, all of this is just my opinion. You might like a different set of wheels, and that's perfectly okay. This is just what's going to work for me. I realize I'm not the greatest skater in the world, but it's still fun to test these things out and see what I like. So let's get things rolling, pun intended, with the Powell Peralta Dragons. They're 93A and they're 53 millimeter. So I'm going to get things started with some slides on the ground to see if I can keep the wheels in contact with the ground and get them to slide and pivot around. Then I'm going to go into flat ground, some normal stuff that I like to do. Start with an ollie, backside 180. I'm going to make sure I include the backside 180 that's more like a 90 with a little slide at the end to kind of test the sliding of the wheels there. Pop shove it, and we're going to do a heel flip and then also a kick flip. And since these are the Dragons, you've probably already guessed that they slide okay, but there are other wheels that slide better, but the impact from landing on them feels really good. And here on the box, what I'm doing is just kind of feeling how they lock into the angle iron and how well I can stand in the position for a feeble grind, because that's a really weird one for me that I would like to get better at. Then I'm going to do some 50-50s to see how that locks in, and then I'm going straight into the crooked grind. And the Dragons will do crooked grinds, there's no doubt about that, but they can get a little bit sticky from time to time. They are not as slidey in a crooked grind as all the other wheels that I'm testing. Then I'm doing a couple of nose slides, and I was kind of surprised. I thought that they might be a little sticky on a nose slide, but actually they slid really well. And we're going to come back to that. That's something we're going to talk about more as the other wheels go. Here we are with some front side 50-50s, and then into the switch crook, because I got to try it on both sides since I can do that on this little box. And they were performing about the same on this side as well. But like I said, once in a while, you would get a little bit of stickiness as that wheel slides across the angle iron on the top. And then I'm going to wrap things up with front nose. Those are always kind of sticky on this box. I just need to work on those and get better at them on this box. And then finish things off finally with a nollie tail. Then let's move to the second set of wheels, the Powell Peralta Nano Cubics in a 97A 54 millimeter. These are the ones that are Andy Anderson's brainchild. And in case you didn't know, the Nano Cubics are an asymmetrical wheel. The outside sidewall is pretty rounded, kind of like a Spitfire Classic, but the inside sidewall is much more straight to give you, hopefully, the idea is, a little bit more lock-in on that side of the wheel. And the wheel also covers your axle nut and sticks out a little farther, giving you a little bit wider of a footprint between the wheels. And as you may have already guessed, they do slide better than the Dragons on flat ground, and they still absorb some impact, but they do feel harder as you land on them and roll around on them. And I'm not sure if it's a mental thing just because I like these wheels, but as I just stand on the box to try to test the lock-in and go into a feeble kind of position, this one feels really pretty comfortable. I like this position when I do it on the Nano Cubic wheels. And let's pause here and look at it. I can really get that back truck to hang with that heel pinch. And then that front truck still has minimal contact with the wood on the top of the box because of the outside of the wheel being curved. I really like the way I can get into that position because of this wheel shape. So let's go through some basics on the box again. Backside 50/50s, they were a little sketchy. I was just a little off that day. And then straight into crooked grinds. The Nano Cubics in the 97A definitely grind better than the Dragons. There is a pretty significant difference there, I think. The Dragons could get a touch sticky from time to time. You kind of have to push it through the slide. These just want to go. And lately I've been working on trying to get out regular out of my crooks, and so this is just kind of an attempt to not pivot around. Then we'll go into nose slides, and I think the outer edge of the wheel being curved is a benefit here for nose slides. Like I said, we're going to talk about nose slides even more as we go, but let's finish this test. We've got front side 50/50s. Those are locking in pretty nicely. The switch crook, well, that wasn't a switch crook, but the wheels still locked in pretty well. Switch crooks, those worked out pretty well also. Then I'll go into front nose. Again, like I said, these are always pretty sticky on this box because of me, the way I do them. I need to work on that. And then I went into nollie tail again. And nollie tails with these wheels, maybe it was just me this day, maybe it's the wheels, these went really, really well. I think this was the best nollie tails that I did throughout this entire test. I got a couple of good long slides out of it. This last one comes almost all the way to the end of the box, which is great. And next we're going to the Kyle Wilson Spitfires. They are a 99A 54mm with kind of a conical shape. They have very steep sidewalls. And I think when it comes to flat ground, this is where I really start to notice a change, where the wheels feel a bit harder, quite a bit harder. The Nano Cubics and the Dragons were a bit softer for impact, but these wheels suddenly slide a bit more easily as I do pivots and things like that, or the 90-degree 180 with the half pivot. I think these wheels are like right on that brink of, okay, now I'm starting to get into a wheel that's more for sliding and less for like impact absorption. But I think these wheels for me are just a touch confusing because I don't really know what their role is. If I want a wheel for sliding, I don't know if this is the answer because I think I would go with something in a 101A. And I want something soft if I'm doing flat ground so I can absorb impact. So these are a little bit on the hard side for that aspect. So let's take them up onto the box and try that position again. Let's see what happens. They feel close to the same as maybe the Nano Cubics, but maybe a little bit less stable up there. Maybe it's the hardness, maybe it's the shape. Something about this was a little bit more difficult on these wheels. And I think right here it's easy to see how hard of a corner the wheels have and how steep the sidewall is, where when I do get the wheel to tip over, it's just like on this little corner edge. And of course, depending on what you want, it could be a good thing or a bad thing. For me, I think it feels like I'm a little bit less stable when I lock into something like a crook or even try for something like a feeble, where the wheel is supposed to be kind of up on its side and sliding. And here's a goofy looking accidental nose slide 1-footer. I don't know what happened there, but we kept it in there. But one thing I do have to say about the wheels and their hardness is that when you do get them into a crook, they slide really well. They grind really well. So once it is locked into a crook, it feels really good. But I think getting it locked in super stable and like that nice, comfy feeling of being locked into it is a little harder to achieve. So now let's go to nose slide. And the thing I started to notice on these wheels and the next ones, the wheels with steep sidewalls, was that my nose slides kept grabbing, kept catching, and I couldn't get them to slide as far as I have in the past. And so I think that abrupt corner of the wheel, if you get that front wheel in contact at all, it's going to just stick on a nose slide. And that's kind of problematic, but maybe it's something that I just need to get better at as well. I'm not too sure yet, but I think I have an idea. So now I'm going to go over to switch crook, and switch crook, when I could get it to lock in, slid really well. The grind went really nice on these wheels. And so there is an advantage there where if I can get the lock in, they seem to work. And I was feeling so good about my switch crooks, I was trying to do some fakey big spins out. Okay, next up we have Bones wheels in a 54mm. These are 101A. These are sort of the classic hard wheel kind of durometer. And I have to admit, ever since I've been trying any sort of Dragon formula, whether it's 93 or 97, I've really liked those. I like the impact reduction. So getting back on some really hard wheels was a little bit of a weird change. But right away, as I was doing flat ground and I was doing some slides, I noticed that they slide way more easily than the other wheels that I've tried so far in this test. But of course that comes with a price because there's basically no impact reduction. They feel very hard when you land tricks, but doesn't mean I can't land tricks. It's just a different feeling. And now we're gonna take it to the box. This is the one wheel I forgot to do that stationary stand on the edge of the box and kind of feel it out thing. I forgot to do that here, but I was doing 50-50, then I won't go into nose slides, and again, these felt sticky in nose slides, and I think it's that hard front corner right here. You can see that the front wheel is in contact with the box. The other problem is the wheel is in contact with the box on the wood. I never realized until I started looking back at this footage that my wheels are in contact with the wood below the angle iron and not on the angle iron itself. That's a little bit problematic, so in the future I'll be waxing up that wooden section. And so from there we're going to go into the crooked grind, and you might expect this felt pretty similar to the Spitfire 99s. They slide really well when you get them to lock in, but I think that steep sidewall, again, that abrupt corner, makes it a little bit harder to get a solid lock, but once you're in it, then you're kind of golden. It's sort of this weird trade-off for me. But I did get a few decent crooks, most of the time with that pivot out, but that's okay, I'll take that for now. Then we're going to take the box the other way, and one of the advantages I think of that steep inner sidewall is that lock-in for things like 50-50s. Some of these frontside 50-50s were really solid and they locked in really nice. The front nose slide, sticky as always, but I'll have to work on that in the future. I think it's more of a balance and angle thing that I'm doing, not really a problem with the wheels. And then nollie tail was also surprisingly sticky on this side, and that's a little bit unusual, so I don't know if that's down to the wheels or if it's just me. And then into switch crook, and I think again, like the 99A Spitfires, once these lock in, they go really well. They slide really well. And I was starting to get pretty comfortable. It seems like maybe on my switch side, I like these steep sidewalls for crooks, but maybe on my regular side, I don't. It's really weird. But I was getting pretty comfortable with these and trying to spin the board out and trying to get fakie big spin. Nearly got that one. I just missed with my feet, basically. Needed more rotation. But the fact that I was even trying these, that's kind of a good sign. That one was almost there, kind of scrapey. And the final wheel we're going to look at are the Spitfire Classics. They're 101A, they're 53 millimeter. And as we get into these, special shout out to 100 Fun Summers. I'll put a link to his channel down below. He just talked about how this is his favorite wheel for slappies and curb grinds and stuff, and it kind of inspired me to get them out again and try them in this test. And while I'm thinking about it, second shout out to Sticker Steve, who's been doing some wheel reviews lately comparing things to the Spitfire soft sliders. Some good videos to check out there too. And as we do the flat ground part here, you already know that they were sliding really well. The 101A slides across the flat ground more easily than any other type of wheel that I've been trying. The 90-degree ollies went well. The impact, you know, as you would expect, again, they're hard wheels. When I did that primo heel flip there, I was like, I don't know if I want to do more heel flips today. But I think it was just me on this day. My kick flips were on point. I got some really good pop out of some of these kick flips. I don't think it was just the wheels. I think it's more me. But hey, maybe they helped. And I did remember to do the stationary thing with these wheels. Since these have such round sidewalls, I think it's a trade-off when you're trying to get into complicated grinds. I think it's kind of easy to get this into the position, but a little bit harder to maintain versus those really steep sidewalls. Kind of an interesting trade-off. And this is kind of interesting too. I accidentally got into a feeble there, so then I started trying feeble. And whoa, that happened. If you've been here for a while, you know I haven't done a feeble on a box yet, so that was my first successful feeble. Sure, I went to board slide for a little bit, but I'm going to take it. I don't even care. And so could it be the wheels? It definitely could be because they have those rounded sidewalls. So maybe for feebles, rounded sidewalls are really important. And then we're going into nose slides, and while I think it was still just a little bit sticky, and that might be because of the whole process of this test and with the wax on the angle iron and all that, but I did get some slide out of these. And again, rounded sidewalls on a wheel for nose and tail slides I think might be a factor for me. And these did feel good in the crooks as well. There was nothing wrong with getting into crooks with this kind of wheel. I do like how they slide, being 101A. That worked out really well. And I did get a couple decent crooks all the way down the box and pivoted off the end most of the time. But they were feeling pretty good, so I was working on seeing if I could come out regular, try to not pivot or not do a shove, see what happens. There was another pivot there, but here I'm trying to just keep it straight and put some more pressure on my heel as I exit. And that's what I'm working on right here. Just stand there and see what it feels like to try to get that weight on my heel and keep it there as I slide out. And I got another close one there. It's just, little bits of success at a time. And then finally here at the end, slide a crook to regular. It's still pretty sketchy, but it's progress. Then we're gonna go into front nose. And like I said, my front nose itself is a problem. That's just me. But what I was having fun with on this day, because of those hard wheels and the fact that they will slide across the concrete pretty well, was doing a little front nose tap and then trying to 270, trying to keep that rotation going as I hit the ground and keep spinning. I've never tried this before, and it was a lot of fun just to try. I know it's still pretty clunky, but that's the way my tricks always are. But I was having a good time anyway. And here we're gonna do some nollie tails. I got a little bit of slide out of these, but nowhere near what I got with the Nano Cubics before. But I wonder if maybe at this point I had a lot of old dirty wax on the ledge and it's slowing down my nose and tail slides, maybe. And switch crooks worked out pretty decently as well. All right, so I want to summarize what I thought about all the different wheels and their different categories. And we're gonna start out with that flat ground sliding. On the left side there, the Dragons, I'm giving a C. They do still slide, but they slide the least out of all the wheels that I tried. The Nano Cubics and the 99A Kyle Wilson Spitfires slide about the same. They feel really similar to me, so I gave them an A. But then if you want a wheel that slides on concrete, you've got to go with a hard wheel. So the Bones and the Spitfire Classics get an S tier. And we can basically flip that upside down for impact. The Dragons feel great if you want impact reduction. They feel kind of soft, but they will still do that little bit of sliding, even though they feel soft. Then I will give an A to the 97A Nano Cubics, a B to the Kyle Wilson Spitfires, and then C tier for the 101A wheels, the harder wheels, because they do feel really hard when you land on them. Then for nose and tail slides, the Dragons get an A because I think that rounded sidewall is pretty helpful, even though they're not as round as maybe the Spitfires. Then the Nano Cubics get an S because I love that rounded shape on the outside of the wheel. The steep sidewalled Spitfire 99s and Bones 101s get a C because I think they were more catchy and grabby for me. And the classic Spitfires get an A. For 50/50s, I think there's not much difference really in the wheels too much, except for the inner sidewall of the wheel. The steep sidewalls on the inside of the wheel, I think, are beneficial for keeping a really comfy, solid lock-in once you get it. So the S's are the Nano Cubics, the Spitfire Classics, and the Bones 101s. But the other wheels are still A tier because it's, like I said, not the biggest difference in the world. And finally, crooked grinds. One of the reasons I really wanted to do this test and figure out which wheel was going to facilitate crooked grinds the best for me, there's no clear answer, but what I did find was that with the Dragons, they could be just a little bit stickier, so I gave them a C. The Nano Cubics get an A. I think they felt very comfortable, and I think they slide well. The 99A Spitfires got a B just because I think they're a little bit harder to lock in sometimes. The Bones also got a B, and then the classic Spitfires I gave an A to because I do like the hardness for crooked grinds. They slide really well, and getting them to lock in was fairly easy. I just don't know if they always hold the grind as good as some of those hard corner wheels once you get them in. So what did we learn? We learned that wheels are a really personal thing, and there's so many options and so many ways to use your wheels. It really is up to you. You can go for hard wheels, soft wheels, different shapes and sizes, but whatever style of riding you do, you want to pick the wheels for that. And so get out there, try different things, see what you like, and just keep on going. If I had to pick only one wheel that I could skate forever, I think the one wheel out of these that I would probably pick are the 97A Nano Cubics, because I think they are pretty good at doing a little bit of everything. Sure, there's other wheels that can do certain things maybe a little bit better, but I think the 97A Nanos are a good place for me. It's a wheel that I really like that can do all of the things that I like to do. So that's my choice. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.